Okay, so you got to hear this, guys. I'm going to narrate this and beat up a couple of sections. One, it's 19 degrees out. He says he's using a water reducer and hot water. He didn't say anything about an accelerator. He also claims that this way, well, listen.
Hey everybody, good morning. It's the middle of December. We got some snow last night, as you can see. It's freezing out. It's probably 19 degrees right now. We're still pouring.
So it's freezing out. It's 19 degrees. Concrete uses water to help with the initial set, to help with the setting of the curing, as it's known. All right, so this is a hydration process. The water will freeze. 19 degrees, the water will freeze. It's a fact, right? Now 30 below 32. They're at 19. We don't know what the wind chill is. He's claiming that listen.
Concrete outside. Got a lot of work left to do. Everything's outside though, so it's going to come to a halt here pretty soon. This guy had that covered.
He said the guy had it covered with these blankets. As you observe, it's got frost on top of the blankets. All right, there's frost on top of these blankets. Does this amount of blankets, does it correlate to covering this full pad? It doesn't look like it to me.
With blankets, so there's no frost in this. You actually...
And the frost would be in the ground. It doesn't care about the blankets. The frost would protect it from air, like snow on top of it. Things like that. And then we have this partially graveled, non-tamped. This gravel has not been tamped. You can see it's loose. Then we have exposed soil here for the most part. This might be a bit of a slope, and then they try to make up for the slope with gravel. I've seen this done before. I can see that it looks like a slope there. All right, just sloping down. Let's go from here. I've seen this done before, where people try to make up an elevation change with gravel.
And a ground heater on it, so it kept the sub-base nice.
Now, they said he had a ground heater on it. You guys know what a ground heater is? They're huge. They're beautiful. There's no ground heater on this, all right? If there's a ground heater on this, we wouldn't see the frost on top of this, on top of the blankets. There was no ground heater on here. I don't see a machine out here that's a ground heater. Ground heaters are huge. They put out the propane. They're beautiful. There's no ground heater here. There's a matte version that's very expensive. It is not here. Not here. So this is just, to me, just BS right there. My point. Let's listen to it again.
Last night, as you can see, it's freezing out. It's probably 19 degrees right now. We're still pouring concrete outside. Got a lot of work left to do. Everything's outside though, so it's going to come to a halt here pretty soon. This guy had that covered with blankets, so there's no frost in this. He actually had a ground heater on it, so it kept the sub-base nice and warm overnight.
Where's the ground heater? Where's the ground heater? When was it removed? Hours ago? Hours ago, the ground's frozen again. All right, so that doesn't make sense that the ground heater would be removed. And look at it, off the site, disappeared. They're expensive, and no.
Concrete just shows up. It's about 8:30. It's about 8 in the morning, actually. We got 2 10-yarders coming. Good morning, everybody. It's a Monday morning.
Wait a minute. Sorry.
2 10-yarders.
And then he's going to add this rebar, right? So then he's going to add the rebar, and the rebar is what? Was it in the ground heater? No. So the rebar is steel that's very cold steel. You get it? Cold steel. It's a pun, also. He's going to lay this cold steel on the edges, he claims, right? On down here, it looks like it's like that. I'm going to get to it. He's going to put it in the neutral axis in the center of the pad. Practically useless especially for this overhang area here. The stress is there. Practically useless. He's going to lay it in that direction. Practically useless. So, you concrete guys, stop just thinking you just lay steel anywhere the hell you want to lay it. You know, stop being so cheap. You know, learn. Learn. Yes, I'm not a soft guy. Learn. Cut the shit. I did a couple of videos on it. Stop with this bullshit of just putting the rebar wherever the hell you think it belongs. All right, let's hear the rest of this.
It's coming. Concrete's good and hot, so it should be good. And he's going to cover this over right after. It's just a mobile home pad, so all we got to do is pour it, low float it.
It's not just a mobile home pad, all right? Not just. This is the structural pad probably required by code to be down there. And concrete being hot. No temperature reading on it. He's going to claim 70. I saw no gauges coming out of there. And this concrete is 70 degrees. You got some hydration going on that creates heat. But he's just going to claim 70. Here we go.
And then we're out of here. That's it for us. So it should be a pretty easy one, as long as everything goes well with the creek truck. The creek truck doesn't freeze up. So we're going to get him backed up, get going.
Now he's going to claim his chute is freezing up. So that tells you the conditions. Let me go faster. Let me just go faster on this.
Cold to be pouring concrete out here today. Let me know what you think down in the comments.
It's too cold to be pouring concrete, you say.
Now, if you're gonna pour concrete when the temperatures are freezing, you know, you gotta number one, site prep is the key. These guys, you can see the excavator way in the background. These guys were just here, you know, the last 2 or 3 days, digging this site out, putting in the gravel. They added a little bit of crushed rock this morning because they were a little bit low on one side.
Okay, so there it is. There it is. It was a little low on one side. All right, so I didn't even catch that part. All right, so it's freezing weather. Concrete doesn't cure in freezing weather. It just doesn't cure. The process takes, you know, oh my gosh, you're talking, you know, you're freezing the water inside the mix design. You're creating frozen icicles, and ice does what? It expands. You're creating these.
But the key for them was they kept the subgrade protected, you know, at all times that they weren't working on it. So they would.
Now he states that now the key is keeping the subgrade protected with blankets. He said a heater a second ago. Let's go back and listen.
Put the gravel in, level it out, compact it. And if they were done for the day, they'd cover it with blankets before it froze. And that's really, you know, that's the number one key to doing concrete when it's freezing like this. And then, oh, just lost my mag. The second key is having the right mix design. You know, you got to order the right concrete. So you typically want a concrete with a high cement content, because the higher the cement content, the more heat the concrete's going to generate as it cures. And then you got to be able to have hot water in the concrete with temperatures of this low. And otherwise, you know, if the concrete shows up at 55 degrees or so with just cold water, it's gonna cool off way too fast and start to freeze. You know, when you're starting out with water temperatures at 130 or 140 degrees at the plant, and then they mix that really hot water with the aggregate and the sand and all that, we end up with a temperature right here on the job site at about 70 degrees.
Okay, so they're mixed materials at the plants or out in the open. Those mixed materials are ambient temperature. It's not heated. It's heated water, but not the rest. He could have used a high early mixed to try to create a high heat. So now here are some blankets that I've or elements that I've seen put down on the ground to keep the ground protected from frost, from freezing, and then put the insulated blankets on top, and they come back with these again. This is one way I've seen people try to get around it, and go extend beyond your pad so you don't get the frost coming in there and the freezing ground coming there and screwing up your pad. So go beyond that, beyond your pad. Now, as you can see, they're not cheap. This expensive system, you must run it with electric. There is, of course, the tented design where you tent everything up and you blast heat in there to keep it up about 60 degrees while it cures. Doing it without that, you're just going to get a weak concrete. It's going to freeze. It has no choice. It will freeze. You can't just put 60-degree water outside and say, oh, it's going to last, many hours in 19-degree weather with the wind chill, with the wind going over it, because I believe he states 19 degrees. Oh, it'll be okay until it cures. The cure at 19 degrees is, hours and hours and hours and hours, and this isn't going to add heat. That hydration is not really going to take place. It's not going to be adding the heat to maintain. Let me put it that way. Here on Amazon, you may see that the a 2 foot by 2 foot heated blanket is going to hit you at $3.19. 2 foot by 2 foot. All right, so you can see that's pretty expensive. That's why the other element works. If you can lay it out there and get that ground temperature, get it up there, and see if you can maintain it up there after you put your concrete on it and extend it out. The heated blanket trick works a little bit longer, but that's not cheap, and you charge significantly for putting that blanket out there. The elements, the heating elements. Here's the other product I'm talking about that usually gets embedded in the house, but we're looking at a 2 foot by 5 foot section here for $1.39. And if you can put the blankets over top of it and protect this, this may be your alternate means to get the ground, keeping the ground from freezing. And then again, put it on top of your blankets. To do it, and you can put another one on top of multiple layers. So blanket, layer this product here, and then blanket, and hopefully that will get you your transfer of your heat, not just evaporating to the air, but make a nice little sandwich going like that. Careful your moisture buildup, your condensation, making it between your blankets. Careful of that. Mindful of that. Here's another version for you. Heated snow and walkway. This is a 30 by 30, 30 inch by 30 inch, $1.40. All right. So, you're going to have to be many blankets there. Then cover it with your blankets. And as long as it's, there's no fire hazard. And get that heat, get that ground unfrozen. And you're going to do the same thing with that concrete. This is going to go back on. Bleed water. You're going to have to make sure you get that bleed water off before you install this. All right? Get that bleed water off. You also run the risk of the ground still coming up to temperature because now it's colder. So make sure you extend beyond your pour. So hopefully the heat inside the concrete, the hydration, will keep this concrete at a certain temperature where you're not creating some multiple layers of curing. Initial set down here, then initial set up here, and creating a weak bond issues. Now, getting to the high early part, the part that helps you set up faster. The problem with this is you will get corrosion problems. You will get corrosion problems using a high early product and steel. There is a way around that. That's another video. We'll take this little clip here and we'll look at this. And this is about right. Below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, the hydration reaction basically stops. And the concrete doesn't gain strength. At 19 degrees, it's not happening. 19 degrees, you're gonna be out there it's gonna be very soft for forever. And again, the crystals that are created once it heats, once it expands, that concrete becomes like ice cubes, expanding, and you're creating all these crystals inside your mix. So let's get back to this, and I'll jump. I only made it up to 10 minutes, so let's go.
So when you're pouring, especially when you're pouring 6 inches thick, it gives you some time to really work with it and let it cure up before it cools down too fast. So today we just got to get this unloaded, get it spread out, get it screeded, get it bowl floated.
Rebar,
and then that's going to be the finish for this because, like I said, they're putting a mobile home right on
that's
this.
the neutral
so
axis.
A single wide, I don't know what you guys call a mobile home or single wide trailer is going to set right on top of this, and 99% of it's going to be covered with the, with the home itself. So it's basically just a base.
I'm just letting him talk so we can do narration.
And we don't do a ton of these anymore. I used to do a lot of them.
All right, you're going to hear him talk about the rebar and wet setting it. Listen.
20, 25 years ago. But when we do them, this is basically how we do them. I mean, some contractors will do them we'll throw some wire mesh in there. We're going to end up putting a double row of rebar around the outside edge. We'll wet set that because there's nothing really to tie it to here. But for the most part, we'll just use the fiber mesh. We'll use the high strength concrete with the fiber mesh in it. As long as the sub base is compacted really well and it's not going to...
He's calling it 4,000 psi is high-strength concrete. That's what he stated was going in this mix 4,000. And then he says, as long as the sub-base is compacted very well, listen.
Settle. We never really have a problem with these cracking or breaking up. It's just, it really depends on the sub-base. If that's done right, the concrete's just not going to crack all up on its own. So having a good concrete mix is a big important part of that too. But for us, the three of us, me, Darren, and Luke, we'll get, this is 2 trucks.
He's going to talk
this
about
one's
the
a 10.5 yarder. The second one's going to be a 10 yarder. We also got a little pad going in right over there where the excavator is now.
So he's pouring getting a hole there. At least that ground might be warm because it might be deeper. All right, let's let him identify the temperature again.
He's digging the hole for it right now. That's going to be for the propane tank. It's going to be an underground propane tank, so you'll see how they put in a pad for one of those. But for us, the three of us, it's just like, let's get this down, get it screeded, get it bowl floated as quick as we can, because I don't know about you guys, but when it's 19 degrees out, and even with gloves on like I have right now, my fingers start to freeze up on me. My feet stay pretty warm because we're walking in the concrete. That's kind of warm. And my body's not too bad, I guess, as long as the wind isn't blowing. It's usually just my fingers. What bothers you the most in the cold? I mean, or do you not even live in the cold so you don't have to worry about it? Let me know down in the comments. For me,
shoot, watch.
Like I said, it's my fingers. So we're trying to get this thing dumped out as quick as we can, but I mean, you can really only go so fast. So we're gonna...
All right, so now he's going to talk about the freezing going on. Listen, of the materials.
You can really only go so fast. So
right here,
we're gonna mag. Well, you'll see here in a minute. We're gonna mag float the edges.
Mag float the edges.
Right after we wet set the bars, and then we'll get this truck out of the way so he can start washing out. Because basically, if you leave the concrete sitting for even a minute, it freezes right to the chute. Same with that little cold chute. We call it a cold chute, a 6-foot cold chute we use to start with.
He says within 1 minute it starts to freeze. Within 1 minute. So what does that tell you about this back here? It still falls under the 1 minute rule, and he's saying in 1 minute he's got freezing issues. So he's just debunking himself. Let's keep going.
If we don't wash that right up like it's sitting, I can see it sitting out there now. That concrete's freezing right to it right now.
The concrete's freezing to it. The water content in there is freezing. And he says he can see it freezing. And he's laughing about it. This shows you the quality and craftsmanship of this guy, willing to just make money and do this job. And then he actually does a video of it, because YouTube is paying, obviously. Because this is enough for that guy to take him to court, as far as I'm concerned, unless they agreed to all the risks the owner did. But any engineer would be able to go, no, this just doesn't meet it. Any local engineer up there, not myself, would be able. No engineer would say this would meet this would be acceptable with the temperature ranges and the opposite statements he's making, such as freezing concrete. That just throws it out right there. You just said you had freezing concrete. That kills it right there, that you're not in spec.
I mean, the hot water from the truck, we get to use the hot water to wash stuff with, so it does still clean the frozen concrete off the tools, but it's much better if you can just rinse it off right after you use it. Then it comes
cleans the frozen concrete off the tool, so even it's just bonding to the tools, even pushing around ice.
Off a lot faster. And you can see a little bit of steam coming off the concrete. I'd like to see, honestly, I'd like to see a little bit more. That would mean the concrete is even warmer or hotter.
That does not mean that. All it means is your dew point, your difference in your temperature, like breathing out of your mouth in the wintertime. You see it come out. That's all it is. It's your exhausting that. In fact, it means it's losing temperature that fast, being pulled out.
But just seeing some steam is a good sign. That means we got warm concrete going down on the ground.
Well, it means of temperature variations. Again, it's 19 degrees. That concrete might be 60, 70 degrees. Of course, you're going to see that exhale there, but it's evaporating. The heat is dissipating fast. Let me bring us up to speed a little bit.
When we get done, you know, today when we get done with this, we're going to put those blankets right back on it. Even though the concrete's still going to be pretty soft, we want to try to hold in as much of that warmth as possible, so this stuff starts to cure up, and then
you would have been doing that already. If you've already been magging it back already there, trying to get that bleed water, come up to the top, squeegee that bleed water off. Don't wait for it to evaporate. The temperature's just going to let it freeze. So squeegee it off. Its temperature will just let it freeze on top. You're not going to get any real evaporation at 19 degrees. All right, it doesn't look like it looks like an overcast day here. He's pouring early in the morning yet, so it's he's not even getting the advantage of the sun helping with any evaporation.
The guy we're doing it for here, his name's Jim. He actually got it all formed up for us and ready to go.
Okay, so I want you to observe the top of the truck there, the heat coming off of that truck, the difference being sucked out, wicked out with the ambient temperature there, just blowing off, and I watch it.
Dumped out. And if you're thinking, wow, geez, that stuff you started with first, where you first pulled that out of the truck, it's been sitting there for quite a while.
That's the top in a second.
Wouldn't that be setting up on you if the concrete was so
right there,
warm?
look at it. See it blow out like a chimney?
Well, I mean, it could be. But, you know, if you're experienced and you do this a lot in these temperatures, and you use the same concrete company all the time with pretty much the same mix.
It doesn't matter if you're using the same mix and all that. This is still going to be shit.
You know, you got a really good idea of how much time you have before you got to get it screeded, you know, before it starts setting up on you, so it makes it more difficult to work with. So we know.
Before it starts setting up on you. This shit is not setting up anytime soon. It's not setting up anytime soon. Okay, guys?
We know we have enough time to get this truck dumped out, even if it takes us 10 to 15 minutes to get it dumped out. Then we know we have enough time to get back and still get it screeded and both loaded before we start struggling with it.
There's no middle struggle with this. Now here's the rebar placement.
All right, so Darren and Luke, they're wet setting the rebar around the edges.
Listen where he says middle.
Just, you know, for something like this with no wire or rebar mat in it to tie anything to, this is the easiest way we found to do this and still keep it right about in the middle of the slab. So
he's going to put rebar in the middle of the slab. Neutral axis. This changes the... So let's just do... He said 6 inches. So it's really probably 5.5. But let's say 6. All right. So here's 3 and here's 3. There's the rebar. You can count the thickness of it. I don't know what you have there. So this reduces... Neutral axis just probably puts this more like the rebar effectiveness. Somewhere about the cover. Somewhere about... Maybe around 4 inches, 4.5 inches with the cover. but he just reduces it down to 3 inches when you put it just there. Now they're just pushing it in with their tooling, with this mag. This one's got a little radius thing going on there. And how will this work? Well, the rebar is only in this direction. So, and it's in the middle. So it's only going to be if you're loading the ends like that, and so like that. Let's do the rotation. That's about the size of that. But when you get near the ends, all bets are off. It changes again. This over here has that built-up stone area, which should have got a different to me, different concrete rebar configuration around the entire edge, depending on the loading of the trailer.
You know, Luke's pushing it down 2 or 3 inches, get it right in the middle. We'll keep it an inch or two away from the edges. And, you know, we'll keep them bars 4 to 6 inches apart. So basically, they're just help strengthen.
Maybe I'm cracked, but that doesn't look 4 to 6 inches apart, nor does it look 1 to 2 inches from the edge. If that's 4 to 6, then this looks even greater. But you know what? It's just par for the course.
Up the edge a little bit when they go to back the trailer on it. And if the slab does want to crack, you know, it'll help hold it together on the edges. We've always done them this way. I've done hundreds of them like this with no problems here in Maine. So this is really the basic way that we do it. 6 inches thick is a pretty standard thickness too for a mobile home pad up here in Maine.
All right, we'll let them talk.
Really, like in this town,
we want to look at the mix.
No real building codes in this town. Some towns do have some pretty strict building codes on how to do it and what to do.
He says no codes in that town. No codes in this town. That takes some very deep thought there. So just because there are no codes does not mean you don't install it in a workmanship manner. So you may not have to deal with a code, but you have to deal with workmanship manners in each state. Workmanship. And workmanship means that it's going to have a warranty per whatever the state requires. Some states require a minimum 1 year for workmanship. But that also requires that you do it, things like you don't pour concrete in freezing weather, that it doesn't count, or you don't paint someone's house in freezing weather. That's the paint specially designed for that. You just don't do it. So workmanship still counts. Doesn't matter that there's no code. Workmanship rules.
And even some of the mobile home companies will have their own standards or it's okay, definitely easier to pull it backwards.
In a moment,
as the guy's screeding.
In a moment, he's going to talk about frozen bull floating. Watch.
Look at how hard they're working compared to how hard I was working pulling that back. Now I'm running the bull float over it, and I got a little piece of, I don't know, dirt or something frozen to the bottom of the bull float, so I had to scrape that off. It was leaving a line.
Frozen again.
Once I get that off, you can see as I run that bull float over it just how nice and smooth that is. So I can basically just go up and back once, and that'll be the finished surface for this. Now, how can I tell it's flat? Well, when you bull float over something like this, if the bull float runs, if it runs smooth from edge to edge of the bull float, if there's no little dip under it or lines or holes,
now let me pause it.
If the edge of the bull float does.
And just for the record, you guys can see these are not heated blankets. These are just blankets.
My fingers are froze. I can't feel them in my gloves.
His fingers are frozen.
I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna get by.
Now his fingers are frozen. He's 98.6 degrees, and his fingers are freezing. So it shows you what's going on with temperature. If you're 98.6, your core temperature, and you're complaining about frozen fingers, and you can create heat, imagine this concrete not being able to do that.
Struggles of pouring in Maine in the winter, I guess.
Pouring concrete in Maine in the winter. Yeah.
I've yet to find a really good way to keep your hands warm while you're working outside in the cold like this, and you're touching ice cold steel, like what Darren's touching on the chute, or even the rakes or the bull float. And you
Ice cold steel. That's right. And it's going to suck any heat coming out right into the ice cold steel, because the steel didn't heat up. Remember, this guy's theory is that it will heat up and heat the ground up and all that. Well, that concrete's been coming out of that chute for some time now, and he just said the chute is ice cold.
really don't want gloves that are too thick, because you got to be able to move your fingers in there and have some type of control with your fingers. So I don't know if you guys know something that I don't, just let me know. But
yeah, don't pour in 19-degree weather.
Nothing I've found. Even those, I'm wearing pretty thick gloves today too, from what I normally wear.
Oh, and he says, and he got gloves.
I don't know. It just doesn't work very good.
That's right. So it won't.
There's some secret type of glove out there, or some hand warmer. You guys let me know.
So
this second load,
it's like
the second load here, felt like it was even warmer than the first load, which is kind of weird, because when they batch the concrete out,
you see the steam coming off that second load?
The first 10 yards or so of material, aggregate anyway, and sand, are actually inside the garage. And then after they empty those bins into the first truck, then they got to reload them with material that's been sitting outside. So typically the first load out of the plant is the warmest. But this one definitely it was warmer. You could just tell on your boots, and you can see the steam coming off it. It was steaming quite a bit more than the first truck was.
I don't see the steam on this one. But I tell you what, if you let that concrete set up in that truck, that'll get you some putting down mortar mix.
I'm gonna get these edges, man. I'm gonna have Luke take over with the power screed, because my fingers were tried heated gloves. The trouble with heated gloves, the battery powered heated gloves, my fingers are way too down. You can watch as I run this bull float over it, just how flat it is under the bull float. Again, if there were any issues, if there were any humps or dips, they would show up right now.
Okay, here he's gonna say that's done, and everything's freezing. He's literally just saying what the problem is.
All right, that's done. Everything's just freezing on contact. It's so cold. That concrete won't freeze for a little bit, but he's got to get it covered within probably 30 minutes or so, 30 minutes to an hour before it starts to freeze. It was pretty warm on our boots, so I know the concrete temps are up around 70. Now what we're doing...
So he says because it felt warm on his boots, he knows it to be the concrete at 70 degrees. That's not how the way that works, guys. That's not the way how that works.
Is we got a little pad we got to pull for his propane tank. They're going to bury the propane tank in the ground.
Yeah, well, anyway, look. The ground is still frozen. Not over here. I mean, the ground is he said he claimed that they used heated blankets there. I don't see that happening. It's 19 degrees. I don't see that happening where this is going to come out well. I see frost on his blankets over here that he claimed that was some type of heated system down here, which we see no trucks, no fuel trucks, no generators for those fuel trucks, etc. And there is frost on top of these blankets, which is indicated that there was no heat on this surface that would have taken care of the frost. Also defrosted the blanket. So let's come to the point of adding crushed rock. And he states added crushed rock this morning. So this crushed rock didn't have the advantage of the heat that was supposed to be applied there. So it's cold rock, right? It's not heated rock. There we go. Let's hear it.
Now, if you're gonna pour concrete when the temperatures are freezing, you gotta number one, site prep is the key. These guys, you can see the excavator way in the background. These guys were just here, the last 2 or 3 days, digging this site out, putting in the gravel, They added a little bit of crushed rock this morning because they were a little bit low on one
This
side.
morning.
But the key for them was they kept the subgrade protected with those blankets, you know, at all times that they weren't working on it. So they would put the gravel in, level it out, compact it, and if they were done for the day, they'd cover it with blankets before it froze. And that's really, you know, that's the number.
He said he added the gravel this morning. Now all of a sudden he says they would compact it and then cover it. He said they added it this morning. I see frost on top of these blankets. This story doesn't, it's just, you know, to me the story sounds like you're trying to make a video, and instead of going, you know, this is just this junk, but we went ahead and did it. He's trying to use the right words. So if you're trying to use the right words, you know that it's an error. If you're trying to correct it, instead of just saying, hey, this is the way we did it. The owner wanted it done, 19 degrees out. This is the best we came up with, and we're going to cover it with blankets, and that's it. But no, he's adding heated blankets, compacting that took place, that it was recovered. But he just said they did that this morning. So this is like 8 a.m., I think he said. So at 7 a.m., they did it this morning. Where'd they get the stone from? Looks like the stockpile's over here. You dumped it in here. Where's the tamper? Don't see it. The stone doesn't present as tamped. Presents just graded off. And he said they put the blankets back on it afterwards. I don't see that happening. The blankets got frost on them.
One key to doing concrete when it's freezing like this. Yeah, and then, oh, just lost my mag. The second key is having the right mix design. You know, you got to order the right concrete. So you typically want a concrete with a high cement content, because the higher the cement content,
4,000 psi,
the more heat the concrete's going to generate as it cures. And then you got to be able to have hot water in the concrete with temperatures of this low. And
they do it anyway.
You know, if the
they don't give
concrete
you
shows
cold water
up at
in the wintertime, they charge you for a
55
period.
degrees or so with just cold water, it's gonna cool off way too fast and start to freeze. You know, when you're starting out with water temperatures at 130 or 140 degrees at the plant, and then they mix that really hot water with the aggregate and the sand and all that, we end up with a temperature right here on the job site at about 70 degrees.
Yeah, and remember he uses boots to tell that. And you get some hydration that's taking place with the hot water. Most of that's during the transportation and the cooling down. I don't know how far this is from the plant. That's an issue. But he does have a water reducer in it. I don't know what water reducer he has, and that really matters. It means you use less water to do this, which is good. But again, I'm going to end this video with 19 degrees Fahrenheit is a clown show for pouring concrete. You're pouring concrete 19 degrees. You're just a greedy bastard wanting money. My opinion.